The Giants face huge trade decisions from Jarren Duran to Bryan Reynolds to rentals and prospect swaps, plus roster shakeups, prospect promotions, and the one that got away, Josh Naylor.
You are Locked On Giants, your daily San Francisco Giants podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello and welcome to Locked On Giants, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team every day. My name is Ben Kaspick, and on the show we provide daily episodes Monday through Friday, talking about the San Francisco Giants in a way that's data-driven and rational, but also simple, passionate, and accessible to all. I'm a former contributor for the baseball statistics and analysis websites Beyond the Box Score and RotoGraphs. I've been podcasting about the Giants since 2015, hosting this show for over 6 years, and I'm a lifelong Giants fan. Thank you for making Locked On Giants your first listen every day. We're free and available wherever you get your podcasts, including YouTube, so check us out there if you have not already, and please hit that subscribe button wherever it is that you're following the show. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers can get $200 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. And coming up on today's show, we're going to get into trade targets and scenarios. It's that time of year for sure. We're also going to get into roster construction questions and positional questions, like should Elliot Ramos perhaps move to the DH role given some of his defensive struggles, and also prospects and promotions as a hot topic. So getting right to your questions, thank you so much to everyone who submitted them. We had like 50. So the first many are about the trade deadline. As we are now in mid-June, it kind of comes up on us quick. And Mark says, who should we give up for Brandon Lowe? And yeah, so there's a lot of questions about Brandon Lowe. We're also going to get into Jarren Duran. So Jake says, I keep seeing folks bring up a mock trade to the Sox. I think Duran is his name. Would he be a good fit, and who would we have to give up or have to let go of? And then Niners Giants says, what do you think it would take to get Duran? Would Matos, Luciano, Yastrzemski, and Mason Black do it? Bunch more questions about Duran. So I'm actually going to get to Lowe and Bryan Reynolds and others later. The first one I wanted to start with was Jarren Duran. So Jarren Duran is an outfielder with the Boston Red Sox. And one of the things that, complicates matters is I'm looking at the playoff odds right now, and the Red Sox, according to FanGraphs, are sitting at 23%. And so one of the realities of right now is that teams are not ready to sell yet, probably. If they're sitting at playoff odds, Red Sox are just 2 games under 500. I'm sure they're not just ready to give up a player like this at this point in time. So this kind of becomes a down the road question, but it's fair. I mean, he does fit the Giants very well in a lot of ways. It's apparent that not only is first base a area of need for the Giants, probably in more of a short-term capacity, but in a longer-term situation, I think that right field is a big opening, and that's where Jarren Duran comes into play. So Duran is just 28 years old, and he is still not eligible to be a free agent until after the 2028 season. There's a club option for $8 million for 2026, and then there's 2 more arbitration years after that. And so for a player who last season put up almost 7 FanGraphs wins above replacement, that, he would not come cheaply at all. And so the mock trade that, who was it? Niners Giants says Matos, Luciano, Yastrzemski, and Mason Black. Probably not, to be honest, just because Luis Matos and Marco Luciano have not proven to be major league talents. And there's a solid chance that neither of them ends up being a major league talent. And Mike Yastrzemski is a free agent at the end of the year, and Mason Black is one of the lower end of the many pretty talented pitching prospects that the Giants have. It'd be more like Luis Matos. Definitely, I think Luis Matos and Marco Luciano are names you could certainly see dealt by the Giants. But to get Jarren Duran, I think that there would be a better package out there from another team than that one. It'd be different if Duran had like 2 years of team control left, like this year and next year, but we're talking about 4 years of team control and just a huge season that he had last year. This year, it's not been as good at all. I mean, he's been solid, but not great. And we're also looking at defensively. He spent most of his career in center and has proven to be a capable center fielder. Last year, 17 defensive runs saved in center. This guy is a monster. Like this year he's just been 6% above average offensively. In his career, 11% above average offensively. But man, we got to look at him last year, and I would love to have this player on my team, and that would be a very good fit for the San Francisco Giants. I'm just not convinced that the Red Sox would be selling a player like this because of how many years of control that he has. And then B, I'm not sure that the Giants would be comfortable giving up what it would take or even potentially have what it would take. I think they'd be asking more for like your best young pitching talent plus Luciano and Matos and maybe like Casey Schmidt, and they'd probably want Bryce Eldridge, to be honest. And the Giants, I'm almost positive, would not be willing to give up Bryce Eldridge almost under any circumstances. Also, Duran, the more I look at it, he's never had an above average season against left-handed pitching, even last year. So he is kind of like a high-end platoon player. And so I don't know. I think the more I look at it, given those names you're mentioning and that I'm saying that might not be enough, that makes me uncomfortable. So another name that Giants fans are very familiar with is Brian Reynolds. And we get the name Brian Reynolds mentioned from Breezy_PTB, who says Brian Reynolds would be an amazing fit for the Giants. Do you see it as a realistic fit? And what kind of package would get that done? So Brian Reynolds, of course, the Giants had and then traded to the Pirates in a very ill-fated move where they got a rental Andrew McCutchen out of that deal. So Brian Reynolds, of course, with the Pirates still signed an extension that runs from 2023 to 2030 with a 2031 club option. So there's still counting this year, 6 years on that contract plus a 2031 7th-year club option for $20 million. It's very reasonably priced. Reynolds, though, is already 30, so there is a chance a team like Pittsburgh would be kind of maybe wanting to get away from that one, especially because Reynolds has started to show signs of decline defensively. He had like one huge season in 2021, but otherwise his defense has kind of hurt his overall value, according to, metrics like wins above replacement and the like. So he's kind of been miscast as a center fielder. I think he's transitioned more to the corners where he's been better. He's been better in left than in right historically. So I don't know. I don't know that the Giants would want to take that on, given that you look at the types of seasons he's had. Last year, 2.1 Fangraphs wins above replacement. The year before that, the same. The year before that, 2.8. Like, these aren't that different than the type of numbers we've seen from Mike Yastrzemski. And we're talking about a guy who's under contract, albeit not a very expensive long-term deal, but he's already 30, and you'd be taking on 2026, 7, 8, 9, and 30 plus. So that's 5 additional years. So Duran has his flaws. Reynolds has his flaws. Brandon Lowe might be a really good fit. And then also Luis Robert gets mentioned as a trade target. So coming up in just a minute, we're going to explore more trade candidates that you all are asking about. We're also going to talk about the current roster and the roster construction and positional fits for some key players. So all of that coming up in just a minute and before we get into it. Today's episode of Locked On Giants is brought to you in part by Trade Coffee. Let's be real. Coffee is not just a drink. It is a ritual, a lifeline, the thing that gets you from half asleep to fully functioning. And if it's that essential, why settle for anything less than amazing? That's where Trade Coffee comes in. Trade is the #1 coffee destination in the United States, delivering fresh, incredible coffee from over 50 of the country's top roasters. Whether you're a cold brew fan or a pour over purist, they've got a roast you will love. I took Trade's quiz. It only took a minute, and the first bag that they sent me was spot on. I've actually got more of it right here because it was just so perfect for me based on the quiz I took. It's called Flores Bellas, and it is absolutely delicious. The smell, the taste, it is just incredible. The aroma, it's perfect for me. And so the quiz is spot on. Right now, Trade is exclusively offering our customers 50% off your 1-month trial at drinktrade.com/lockedonmlb. That's drinktrade.com/lockedonmlb for 50% off your 1-month trial. All right, here we go. We're going to get into more trade questions and also the Giants roster construction. Elliot Ramos, I think it's a legitimate question as we've seen him continue to have some gaffes defensively in the outfield. Thanks again for making Locked On Giants your first listen every day. Everydayers on Monday. Oh yeah, guess what? We'll be breaking down this 3-game series in LA. It is a big one with the Giants going head-to-head against the Dodgers for the first time all season, and they're just a game back going into this series. So hopefully they can come away with at least a win, and preferably more than that. If they can win 2 out of 3, they would be tied with the Dodgers atop the division. So more questions. Like I said, Mark says, who should we give up for Brandon Lowe? I like the directness of this question. So Brandon Lowe of the Tampa Bay Rays may be the most realistic of the names I've seen mentioned here so far. It's a different position, and it's actually a position where it would give the Giants some flexibility as to where someone like Brandon Lowe would play. And so the Rays are always in the market for trading guys, away when they're getting closer to free agency, and they typically they don't wait until guys lose trade value. And you lose trade value, especially when you're like only under contract for one more season. And so for Lowe, he's under contract for this season for $10.5 million. And then there's an $11.5 million club option with, it looks like, no buyout for next year. And so that seems like a pretty easy pickup of that club option, but I would not be shocked at all to see Brandon Lowe traded. And I'll couple that by saying he's a good fit for the Giants. So the Rays, though, have playoff odds that, according to FanGraphs, are 41.6%. However, like I said, they trade guys even when they're in contention because that's just how they have to operate. And so when you look at who should the Giants give up, I'm sure the Rays would be interested in a lot of the Giants' arms, Kyle Harrison, Hayden Birdsong, Landa Roop, and Carson Wisenhunt beyond, just many arms. And then also you do look at guys like Luis Matos, Marco Luciano, and they're not gonna get Bryce Eldridge for Brandon Lowe. This is more of what I was saying because Brandon Lowe is much closer to free agency than like Jarren Duran. You get the same kind of situation where Brandon Lowe has been significantly better against right-handed pitching in his career, but he's been kind of a monster, a 132 weighted runs created plus, a lot of power against right-handed pitching in his career. against left-handed pitching in his career, he's been roughly average. And so this is a player who, to me, is capable of being an everyday player, but to the Rays, they do end up platooning him a lot. He's got a lot of power. He hit 39 home runs in 2021. Last year, he hit 21 home runs in 107 games. The year before that, 21 home runs in 109 games. And this year, he's already got 13 home runs in 63 games. So defensively, this season, he started 58 games at second base and 3 at DH. And in his career, he's played some outfield, but it's been quite a while. It's been since 2022. And he's played 4,447 and a third innings at second and 136 innings at first. So for some reason, I thought that he had played more first base than that, but he's been primarily a second baseman where he has graded as below average defensively, but the bat is legit. I mean, in his career, he's been 24% above average offensively. And so a team like the Rays trades guys like this, and a team like the Giants they're not getting a ton out of Tyler Fitzgerald. Tyler Fitzgerald has options, meaning the Giants could send him to the minor leagues. He still has 2 minor league options remaining. It could be the Rays would have interest in Tyler Fitzgerald in a swap with for Brandon Lowe. And so I do quite like Brandon Lowe as a player, and he could potentially, you don't have to have him play second. I think he could play first. And I don't know, Dominic Smith has done a pretty nice job so far, but I don't know. I like Brandon Lowe. The question, who should we give up? It's always so hard. I mean, it would take something, but it wouldn't take your very best. Let's just put it that way. But the Rays have a tendency to win their trades. And so whoever they ask for, you should be afraid and realize that that's probably a pretty good player that has a good chance of backfiring when you give them up and get the player you're getting from the Rays. That happens all the time. So lastly, trade questions get to Luis Robert, and I'm just going to throw cold water on Luis Robert as a trade candidate because he is just struggling big time for the second year in a row. We're talking now his last 161 games, he's hit 211 with a 276 on base and 353 slugging. He has hit 20 homers and stolen 44 bases in that time, only been caught 11 times. So that's intriguing. He's historically been a good center fielder defensively, but the bat is just, I don't know. I mean, I think that there's value here and there's intrigue here, but just the fact that he's struggled so much over the last 2 seasons and he's missed a lot of time with injuries in his career, only played 100 games last year, 14 homers, 23 steals in just 100 games last year. Last time he played a full season, he hit 38 homers and stole 20 bases. So definitely intriguing. And the White Sox are going to listen on everyone they have, given the position they are in. And for Robert, he's under contract for $15 million this year, and then there's 2 $20 million club options, one for next year and one for the year after that. So this could definitely be the year that the White Sox, or the deadline, I should say, that the White Sox trade Luis Robert, but I'm not sure that I would want to give up a ton for a guy who has just generally struggled a lot with the bat the last couple seasons combined, but he's still just 27 years old, turns 28 in August. Definitely a guy I would be intrigued to see the Giants take a shot on. And so there are a lot of names out there, and I do think Buster Posey is more likely than what we saw under the previous regime to go out there and get the, it was reported, I think it was Ken Rosenthal, that the Giants showed interest in Luis Robert over the offseason. And so all of these names, whether it's Brandon Lowe or Luis Robert or Jarren Duran, whoever's out there and available, I expect the Giants to be players for those players. And assuming, of course, that they're still in a solid playoff position at that point in time. Right now, the Giants are the number 1 wildcard team. And they have a shot to go into LA and potentially take over first place or tie. So I would expect Buster Posey to be aggressive, and that the Giants are very well could end up with one of the top names. And this is a pretty strong trade market potentially. It looks to be shaping up that way. So like I said, coming up in just a minute, we're going to get into roster construction and positional questions. Does Marco Luciano have a path to the big leagues? Should Elliot Ramos be the DH? All of that and more coming up in just a minute, and before we get into it. Today's episode of Locked On Giants is brought to you in part by FanDuel. The NBA Finals are in full swing, and every night delivers highlight-worthy performances, major momentum shifts, and can't-miss moments. Whether it's a game-winning shot or a breakout player, there's never been a better time to get in on the action. FanDuel makes it easy to stay in the game before tip-off and live. With player props, performance trends, and same-game parlays, fans have more ways than ever to play smart and win big. Now, just the possibility of placing that first $5 bet and winning $200 in bonus bets, it makes an exciting game even more exciting, way more exciting, I would even say. So are you new to FanDuel? It's the perfect time to sign up. Head to FanDuel.com and place your first $5 bet. If it wins, you'll get $200 in bonus bets. Make every moment more with FanDuel, official sports betting partner of the NBA. All right, here we go. We're going to get to more questions and answers. Thanks again for making Locked On Giants your first listen every day. Everydayers on Monday, breaking down this series in LA. It's such a good pitching matchup tonight to start it off with Logan Webb against Yoshinobu Yamamoto. And Sunday Night Baseball, unfortunately, on Sunday, meaning we have to tolerate the national broadcast there. And the Giants just don't typically seem to play well on Sunday Night Baseball. So hopefully they can reverse some trends here and go into LA and have some like 2021 kind of magic. We'll see. It's the first time going head to head against LA all season, which is kind of hard to believe as we approach the halfway point of the season. So Grant says with the promotion, I skipped over the whole section I meant to get to. Spicy Pickle 1234 says, do you think Marco Luciano has a clear path to consistent playing time in the big leagues? I assume you mean with the Giants. And to me, the answer is probably not. I think he's more likely a trade candidate because he has been someone he's just not done great in AAA even this season. He's now 23, which is still very young, going to be 24 in September, but the trouble is this is his last option year, and so he cannot be optioned again next year. And so the Giants could call him up in September or something, or if he gets red hot here coming up, and give him an opportunity, or if there's an injury or whatever, he could get a shot and he could be on the roster going into next year and kind of stick because he would have to. But I don't think they want to put themselves in that position, which is kind of what happened with Joey Bart, is that they had him on the roster, he was out of options, and he wasn't performing, and so they had to DFA him. And so it'd be better to trade him now than be forced to stick him on the roster next year, and if he struggles, to have to designate him for assignment. He still has some trade value, but it's certainly lower than it's been pretty much at any point. But I think some rebuilding team would certainly have some interest in Marco Luciano, and they would be able to give him that opportunity, because the issue is if you're a contender, you can't really deal with the significant struggles potentially of a young player like this. So, I mean, the only position where there's a clear path right now would be right field. I suppose second base could be an option. Giants were trying him out for a minute at first base in the minors with Lamont Wade struggling so much, but then they very quickly moved on from Lamont Wade. It looks like Luciano played one game at first, and then that was it. So I don't know if he just looked that bad or what, but He's played this year one game at first, and the rest of his games as I'm not even seeing the left field numbers. I don't know what I'm looking at here, but left field, there we go. 54 games in left and 5 games at designated hitter. So playing a ton of left, and that's where Elliot Ramos has really established himself as a good hitter. But another question is from S. Buckles, who says, should Elliot Ramos become a DH? Defense looks shaky. So the way I want to answer this is that Elliot Ramos definitely looks like he belongs with the bat. I mean, there's just no question at this point. I mean, there's always a question. Guys can always go backwards. But right now we're looking at the last two seasons combined for the 25-year-old Ramos. 276 average, 338 on base, 473 slugging. All of those numbers above average. And so he's just doing it. He broke out last year with the bat, and he's been even better this year. A 139 weighted runs created plus this year. But yeah, the defense definitely has looked shaky. We're talking this season in the outfield, -5 defensive runs saved, -6 outs above average, which translates to -7 StatCast fielding run value in runs above average. So runs above average. And the eye test backs that up. He also was really bad when they played him in center. So unfortunately, well, last year he was okay, or if not good, defensively in left. And so maybe it's just been a rough year for him in left. I think that it's too early. Like, they don't have an obvious solution in left. If you take Ramos out of there, I think he's just got to work on some things. He kind of just takes some bad routes sometimes. He doesn't secure the ball into his glove, which is what happened in Colorado in the finale there in that ninth inning, that fateful ninth. So some things to work on. I'm not sure that for a 25-year-old, I should say, that it's time to just give up on him as being a capable outfielder. Like, there's no reason with his athleticism that he shouldn't be able to play a solid left, but he has some things to work on, in my opinion, for sure. So as you note, like, he's been shaky, but it's not like they're just brimming with tons of great options in the outfield. And like, I mean, who else would play out there right now? Would it be you add Daniel Johnson into the roster? I mean, you're then taking out like Wilmer Flores out of the lineup. So I don't know. Currently, I think their best outfield is Elliot Ramos, Jung-Hoo Lee, and Mike Yastrzemski, with the DH being Wilmer Flores and Dominic Smith being the first baseman. That's their current best configuration. Gerard Encarnacion has struggled with the bat. Also, in a small sample at first base, struggled defensively. And then Daniel Johnson, I'm just not convinced that I could be convinced, but he's played 5 games and, you know, has played 41 career major league games and 198 average, 241 on base, 321 slugging. So I don't think that they have better options right now. And Ramos is that good with the bat that I don't want to see them give up on him. That takes away a lot of potential value if he can be solid defensively. Just to stick him at DH, the bar becomes that much higher offensively. But if you're a net negative big time at the position, sometimes, or at some point, it is time to think about that. But I would guess that they keep with him. So finally, like I said, the one who got away, question mark, who is this, says, why did the Giants not go after Josh Naylor last offseason? So, of course, Naylor ended up with the Diamondbacks, and he's 27. He turns 28 this month and is kind of predictably hitting 302, 357 on base, 468 slugging, 129 weighted runs created plus, strikeout rate just 12.6%. I don't know. Like, and I must say, we don't know that they didn't go after him. Also has rated positively as a defender at first base by outs above average in his career. Defensive runs saved sees him as a little bit below average defensively, but Josh Naylor is like kind of exactly the type of player that I would want on my team. He's just a grinder. He's out there all the time. He's intense. He does have historic platoon splits, I believe. Yeah, an 88 weighted runs created plus against lefties, and in his career, 123 against righties. But that's playable as an everyday guy. And so Naylor is he's a free agent at the end of the season, so it was a rental. They didn't have to give up all that much to get him. They gave up pitcher, I don't even know how to pronounce his last name, Slade, I can't say it, Cecconi, and 2025 competitive balance round B draft pick. But yeah, Naylor would have fit the Giants well. I think they believed in Lamont Wade Jr., but that ended up, of course, not working out, and now the Giants are dealing with the ramifications of that. But again, Dom Smith has done a pretty nice job so far, had a huge game, the last game in Denver. We'll see how that plays out. But a guy on the last year of his deal was kind of the perfect player in terms of not blocking Bryce Eldridge long term, but having a good player who could hit in the middle of your lineup for the season and could move to DH if Eldridge became ready. So I do agree. He's kind of someone who got away, but we don't know if they tried to get him or not. We just don't know. Anyway, that is all the time we have for today. Thanks again for making Locked On Giants your first listen today. For your second listen, check out the all-new Locked On MLB Game Night. Every game, every night, all season long. Get local analysis on a national scale. Find MLB Game Night on Locked On MLB on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts. Once again, my name is Ben Kaspick. Check me out on Twitter at Ben Kaspick, Kaspick. If you like this show, please consider rating it and leaving a review. It helps me out so much. So thank you in advance, and thank you so much to everyone who's done so already. I can't wait to be with you again on Monday. Have a great weekend. Thanks again for listening. You are now Locked On Giants.